Let the magic rise.
You're listening to Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, 100% listener-supported radio, and now we return you to your host.
I think I'm turning Russianese. I think I'm turning Russianese. I really... Oh, blimey, hold on. We're live. Oh, blimey. Oh, press the button.
This is London Calling.
My family and I... Ooh. Good evening, people. And welcome to Jingly Jangly. That's right, fake news and imaginary views for the post-truth society. Bloody fader stuck again. Yes, your antidote to reality with me, Olly Connelly, here in España, Euro Disneyland. Big cheers to Mona just now and all the Rev Radio crew. And today, Occupy opposition. Government without effective opposition can lead to tyranny. So how healthy are our oppositions, at least here in the Western world? And not least at a time in my living history, I'd say, when we've never been more divided. And I am old. Joining me tonight, we've got two cracking guests. Political junkies both. Jill Stempel in New York, New York. And Javier Molto in Madrid, Spain.
Hello.
And you, if you want to call in. Yeah. Oh, blah, blah. Yeah, cool the intro, blimey. I'll tell you what, my guess, you just can't get the guess. You just can't get the guess. Hey, I'm so pleased. Skype is such a weird thing to use, guys. I'm really pleased that you're there. I normally have to do a roll cue. I just before I bring you in, I want to say, I understand that some folks have tried calling in over the last few shows who may be wondering why I didn't take their calls. And basically that's because I'm an idiot. And I had the studio set not to notify me when folks call in. So please accept my apology if you have tried, and please have another go, because hopefully I've got it right now. So yes, indeed. Yeah. Yeah. Ah, blimey. I'll tell you what, it's another quiet news week, isn't it? I'm just gonna chuck in a few things that's been going on over here in Europe, just to kind of prime the conversation so far as the European angle is concerned, because hey, I mean I think we've got a pretty good idea of what's going on stateside, and I know you folks are mainly stateside, and yeah, we're going to be talking about Trump, we're going to be talking about all that lot, you know, etc. But yeah, I have got a bit of I was actually thinking of setting up this new website, the Daily Brexit, aka the weekly referendum, because Austria, yeah, that went to the polls, I don't know, 2 months ago, something like that. Their new coalition has collapsed. We've got fresh elections there in October. Now, that is hanging in the balance as to whether or not the nationalists are going to end up taking that coalition. And that is a possible EU referendum right there. Ditto in the Netherlands. Failed to form a coalition. Fresh election is presumed. In fact, I would have thought it should be announced any time. Maybe it was today. I don't know. I didn't notice. Possible EU referendum there. That's Geert Wilders, yeah, who's a bit of a dodgy character, you could argue. and he actually came second in. Anyway, we'll get into that. But yeah, so two possible EU referendums. Yeah, EU doing well this week. Greece is back in recession again. Yeah, the IMF being blamed for their inaction. That crook Lagarde still in charge there. Yeah, French midget in Bilderberlin for Merkin tongue lashing. Yeah, Macroni, whatever. He's in Berlin to find out what the mothership wants to do. Yeah, so that's that. UK has vetoed the EU army over vocabulary. And a German MEP spoke out and said, that is so cynical. And you know what? He's probably right. The Spanish government has called for EU reform, blaming the EU and the euro for historic unemployment highs. Hungary government calls for EU reform, says farming is being devastated by an imbalanced currency. Yeah, this is all just Europe this week. Poland has reportedly been is reportedly going to get 108 billion euros for various projects over the course of the next few years, over the course of the next 2 years, I think. That's a lot of sponsored by the EU signs going up around various projects. I tell you, I'm not surprised the Polish government called Brexit stupid. I mean, they want that money. Anyway, Norway, apparently, as a report out of Norway, 48% there now want an EU referendum. Only 20% say no. The rest, only 20% say no. The rest are unsure, but the ruling party says 9. So there you go. We've got the UK general election going on. Bit of a forecast there. This is my forecast, but this is basically what I, reading between the lines, between the various news sources. Yeah, the Tories, they're tipped for a modest landslide, 65 seats, something like that. That's about 10% of the parliament margin. UKIP, the kind of the nationalist party, Nigel Farage, it looks like they're going to go on ice because if you vote for them, you're taking a vote away from the Tories. And if you take a vote away from the Tories, you're not going to get Brexit. So the folks that would vote for UKIP, apart from in some marginal seats where UKIP might just win, those folks are almost certainly going to be voting for the Tories, and it would be incredible if UKIP get any seats. The Lib Dems, they will very possibly make some marginal gains, but there is big turmoil in the Liberal Democratic Party, the one that's basically saying we will give you a second referendum, a second choice at democracy. They are really pushing for this, but it looks like that's backfired because there was another poll over the course of the last week. I think it was a YouGov poll, so pretty reputable, you'd think. Mind you, they get all the polls wrong in the last couple of years. But they according to them, there's a huge chunk of the folks that said they wanted to stay within the EU who now are saying, no, we want to leave. We want to leave too. And there's only about 22% of hard Remainers left. Think of that. It's going to happen. Or is it? Well, yeah, we'll see. Anyway, so fascinating stuff going on in Europe. Oh, one other thing that happened this week. In the European Parliament, the MEPs decided to vote whether or not the EU needed to reform. I mean, I personally would have thought they should have done this, years ago. I would have said they should never have gone on Lisbon, taking far too much of a power grab away from national politics. But hey, look, we'll get into this because people may disagree. But they voted by, I think it was 525 for reform, as opposed to 25 just to stay on as they're going. So the MEPs, they want reform. But get this, the vote is not legally binding. So the EU Commission doesn't have to do anything about it. They can ignore it. And that is half the problem with Europe, is that you don't have the one person you can vote for, your MEP, because you can't vote for any of the presidents, you can't vote for any of the technocrats, the people that actually set the policy and give that policy to the MEPs. They basically rubber stamp it, the MEPs. They're not allowed to bring their own legislation. They're not allowed to. It's crazy. So they have a vote like this, but it's a symbolic vote. But I tell you, wow, Europe it's not having the best week. I tell you, I ran out of popcorn so long ago. I'm going to set up a popcorn factory. Anyway, right. So we have got two awesome guests here tonight, and I'm really chuffed because these are both old friends of mine, and they are so qualified to discuss this stuff. Why? Because they're stakeholders in society, and not only that, but they're incredibly opinionated. So we're going to have quite an old banter tonight. So let me tell you a bit about them. We have, hold on. I've got this. Where is it? I'll tell you. Scrolling like mad. Well, we've got Jill. Yeah, Jill Stempel. Now, Jill is Ivy League graduate, Princeton Uni, degree in politics. Moved to New York City after college. 22-year-old resident in Brooklyn, married mum with 2 girls. She's a member of the U.S. Democratic Party, has been since 91. She worked on the Bill Clinton, the John Kerry, the Barack Obama, and the Hillary Clinton campaigns as a volunteer. She works as an entertainment media professional in New York City. Has worked for Sony, WENNN, there's only 2 N's. Hearst Media, Digital Entertainment Group, and Think New Ideas. Now that rings a bell. I've known Jill for a long time. Anyway, yeah. So she's a bit of a feminazi too. Hold on, darling. And we've got Javier Molto, who is the former head of news for Bloomberg Spain. I used to work with this bloke. He's a political freak. He's the founder of Partido Imaginario, the imaginary party, to challenge mainstream politics in Spain. So, that's very opposition there. His day job is km77.com, which is a very successful auto review website, journalist type, stuff on cars, of which he was the founder, and he employs about 45 folks. And so I think these 2 people, not least of all, for example, Jill being a mum of 2, these people are stakeholders. These people are really, really involved in society. They know a lot about politics, and they have very different views to me as well. So I'm hoping that, mind you, our values are the same. But yeah, Western values really. But so we're gonna, Jill, is that a bit far? Was that a bit strong? You're not really a feminazi.
Well, I jokingly told you to say that, but obviously, being a professional woman, I have a stake in, equality between men and women, particularly in the workforce, and how it applies to gender pay gap in this country, which is, one of the reasons that I am a member of the Democratic Party, because that is one of their issues, and they have. And so,
it absolutely is.
In general, gender equality is an important thing to me. Having 2 young daughters,
2 young girls. Yep.
But I think it really should be important to men or women, young or old. I mean, why equal rights among races, among gender, that's a way to make our world more equitable, more fair. I think the idea of unfair distribution of resources has been kind of at root of most of our conflicts in the last century.
Yeah.
And going.
It has.
So,
it certainly has.
I definitely see things through that lens, put it that way.
I'll tell you what, there was a really, really good thing for gender rights this week. I don't trust the guy at all, but the new French president, Macron, the guy that beat Le Pen, he, or Macroni as I prefer to call him, he has just appointed his new French cabinet, 22 folks, 11 men, 11 women. I mean, that's pretty good, no? I mean, I think, personally, I think people should be given jobs based on merit alone. But having said that, this is an issue that we kind of got to force too.
Yeah, I mean, I think one thing that's been really disheartening about the Trump administration is just seeing
it's full of men.
How little representation there is of women, and it's full of old white men. And I agree. I don't think that you should be like, okay, we need to hire a woman, let's just go find one. But you cannot tell me that there are not more qualified women. And,
no, probably not.
And because of that lack of diversity is, I think, why some of the policies that are coming out clearly are not being looked at through any other lens other than old white men. Sorry, but no. No,
that's okay. That's all right. I'm an old white man, but I totally agree with you. Look, I just also, I mean, just to mention a comment, it's not easy to say this in any kind of a satirical way, so this is totally serious. Just a bit of a shout out to your hometown, Jill, New York, because what is the news there? There was that nasty accident in Times Square.
Yes, I mean, earlier today, about 4 hours ago, there was reports that there was a car driving down the street in the wrong direction on the sidewalk, and 19 people injured. One woman lost her life. So
it just went up the curb.
Yeah, I mean, everyone was like texting back and forth, like, how do you get going that fast in Times Square? If you've ever been to Times Square, the traffic is always at a standstill. But apparently, how you get going that fast is you drive your car on the sidewalk. So that's what he did, and he, injured 20 people and killed a person. So initially, a lot of the eyewitnesses were saying it seemed like he was targeting pedestrians, and people were very nervous that it was a terrorist attack.
However, that's so perverse, isn't it? That was my first thought as well. We've had these trucks being driven into people in Europe and cars as well. And Javier, did you hear about this?
Well, I'm reading this now. I didn't hear about that. Yeah. But I'm reading it now.
It's very odd, It's really strange. I mean, I it was almost, this is so perverse. It was almost a relief to know that it was was it a drunk under influence, something like that, DUI?
That it seems to be that way. Yeah, I can double check the headlines now, but the last time I was looking at the news, he's like a 26-year-old guy. He's already had multiple arrests for driving under the influence, and they were predicting that it was probably alcohol related and not terrorism. He did not seem to have any terrorism ties. Apparently, when he finally crashed his car, he got out and tried to run away, and when they tried to arrest him, he punched a cop in the face. So clearly his judgment was maybe
yes. I
mean, it's really unfortunate. I mean, as I mentioned to you before we went on air, I mean, my husband, it was right in front of my husband's office, and it was just a scary moment.
Yeah, it's close to home.
Because, coworkers of his had witnessed it. I mean, if he had just randomly decided to get a sandwich then versus an hour later, it could have definitely been very close to home. So, I mean, it's just, and I think the fact that so many eyewitnesses, I mean, I was watching the local news coverage, so many eyewitnesses said, it's just like on TV, it's just like Berlin, it's just like Paris, which,
yeah.
So I do think that we're in a state currently.
Happened in Nice, happened in Sweden. Go on, sorry.
No, of course.
But they were terrorist atrocities, those ones.
Right.
But carry on, sorry.
No, I mean, and to your point, it is a weird, it's just a drunk idiot. I mean, that doesn't help the people who are dead and injured, but
no.
It's like this great sense of relief that we all don't have to go through. I mean, having lived in New York 20 years, I went through 9/11. I
know you did.
And we don't want, it's like, please don't make us go back to those days where it's just, I think because of everything that's going on in the world and the political unrest all over the world, people are just on edge in general.
I think you're right. And another thing, I know I mentioned this to you earlier when we were talking about this. It's like we're one atrocity away from pandemonium. It kind of feels that way. I mean, I know that people have hidden debts when it comes to it. We always have hidden debts. And that was no better example of that than after 9/11 in New York with the way people came together. But it does feel like that, doesn't it? I mean, there's so much on edge, and there's such a lack of trust with the American political system, irrespective of your politics. And it could be an atrocity. It could be a false flag, for all we know. People stirring up, it's.
I know, and it struck me even after the reporting had come in, and probably the eyewitnesses hadn't seen it. So, but watching it on the news, they were getting reporting in from the police. They had ID'd the driver. They had figured out that he already had multiple DUIs, that it definitely was pointing in that direction. Although you don't know. I mean, no. But all the eyewitnesses were like, he was targeting people. It was just like Berlin. You know, I think it's just so top of mind that may happen, that it definitely was a lesson to me. Like, okay, well, this has worked because we're all terrified. You know, I mean, if the terrorism's goal is to make people terrified, well, it's kind of worked. You know, because
do you feel that way? Are you really, Jill? Are you really terrified? Honestly, that's a strong word.
Well, I think that, you know, New York is a crazy town, just like London, just like Madrid. You know, random stuff happens. There's still, you know, you can still get mugged here. You can still, but I think people are much more.
Madrid suffered a torture, and what was it? 240 odd people died in that terrorist atrocity. Is that right, Javier?
True, right, yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
We are living on this edge. Carry on. Sorry, Jill.
Oh no, it's okay. I just think I have noticed being out and about in New York with this election that's put everyone so much on edge, and so much talk of ISIS, and that people are much more, they like jump to like, is it terrorism versus just, oh, is it another, is it, you know, just a crime, you know, in this case.
Yeah.
So
good old-fashioned crime.
Right.
A good old-fashioned murder.
It's like, I mean, you know, I think something that really spoke to me in the election was, you know, gun violence in this country is out of control, and the amount of people killed by guns every day is, you know, literally hundreds times more than killed by terrorism. But we as a country,
is that hold on a sec. Well, what are the stats, more or less? Then
I can probably find it while we're online. I mean, it's literally
we can come back to that.
Like 10,000 people a year versus, you know, hundreds. Yeah. In America, not that many people since 9/11, knock on wood, have been killed in terrorist acts. But there are daily acts of gun violence all over this country. And that was a powerful message, I thought, that both Clinton and Sanders put forward. You know, we can go on and rail against the media. It was something, you know, the media was kind of more obsessed with Donald Trump's weirdness, but to me that message got through, and it was like, you know, terrorism will happen. It's kind of like static right now in the air, but we should really focus on the things that we can solve in our country and that kill a lot more people, you know?
Oh, we had more strikes today as well. There were more US strikes in Syria today on Syrian, I think it was on, I'm not sure who it was on, but apparently they've upset Russia. I don't know what this is. I don't know what the game is. I wonder if, Javier, have you ever known anything remotely, because you're even older than me.
Even older. I think it is possible.
Have you seen anything remotely like? I mean, what is this surreal age we're living in? Is it some kind of? Are we right-sizing somehow, or are things genuinely getting worse, or is this a kind of a sequential chrysalis situation where there's a changing of the guard, or what's going on? Simple question.
You
just solved everything.
I wish I had an answer, Olly. I wish
I'll tell you can't get the guests. Go on. Sorry.
Well, that's very difficult to know. Probably that it is weird. Jill, you were talking before about the guns in the States, and for instance, we are terrified because of the of terrorism,
Right.
but we live every day in more difficult situations than terrorism, than any these accidents that we have, these cars, traffic accidents or planes accidents. But the news are always focused when an accident happens or when a terrorist attack happens, but
Lots of
everyday
fear.
situation,
Fear.
everyday situation is more terrifying and more dangerous than all these things. But we focus our attention in strange things, and this is
What, like Kim Kardashian's bum?
Yeah.
yeah. And it's I think it's normal in the human history. We are not able to focus properly on the right things, and we miss our point of attention, and we like these strange experiences that they are not really important, because as Jill said, well, the terrorist deaths in the States, you don't if you see the everyday deaths in the United States, and the day of the attack of the towers of the, how do you call them? I cannot remember.
7,
Yeah,
9.
9/11. Yeah. Even if you see the statistics of the month of the deaths in the States of that month, they are not changing from the same number of deaths one year before and 2 years before. So there are many
figure.
there are many things that we are focusing on that they are not that important. If we were focusing on the important things, probably we would be able to change our way of living. But society is a very difficult and strange way of living, and I don't know why, but it's difficult to manage to focus on the right ways.
Let me ask you a question then, leading on from that, and so far as our theme tonight is concerned, opposition and having an effective opposition, it seems to me that the main opposition to any political party pretty much anywhere at the moment is not another political party. It's the press. It's the mainstream media, the alternate news media, shows like this, but all of it. And it's also loud. It's deafening. I noticed I check out my news stories are everything from the left wing to the right wing. I check out the lot because it seems to me that's the only way you can check it. But it's like I saw a post on Drudge earlier saying news overload, news stress, and stuff like that. And we've got that, haven't we? Is the media? Is it taking us down? Is it giving us a service or a disservice?
I'm sorry.
Considering we all work in media, how do we want to answer that? No.
Honestly.
But I mean, currently, well, one quick thing, I did find the numbers, and in 2014 there were over 33,000 Americans killed by gun violence and 32 by terrorism. So just to put it, that's 2014. You know, it can change, but that's the imbalance. And I do think that, I mean, as we all know, I mean, in various times of our life, we've made money being employed as journalists, and you know, it is a business, and I do think that fear sells, and it's easier to generate fear, you know, regarding terrorism than gun violence, because they're concerned of, in America at least, offending people who own guns. But to your point of like, the kind of alterna media being the dissenter.
Well, no, the entire lot, really, in terms of, are we, is the media and the alternate media, could you label it a fear factory?
I think a lot of times it is, although I do have to say, I mean, I know you're not a huge fan of the mainstream media, but you
oh no, that's so unfair. Oh no, oh God, blimey, oh no, I'll tell you, this machine. Oh, excuse me, I'm sorry, you mustn't mention the media like that. Sorry, go on. Sorry, Jill, carry on.
I was gonna say, but you have to tip your hat to the coverage of the New York Times and the Washington Post seem to be like in a really duel right now to break more inside stories about Trump, and I credit
who? The New York Times and the Washington Post, did you say?
Yeah, I mean they're doing fantastic reporting. You know, from inside the administration. I mean, without the pressure of them, I do not think we would have a special prosecutor. I don't think that there would be no accountability. And the one
just explain what's going on then with that, because and then we'll bring Javier in. We'll bring in a European perspective on what's going on. Just give us a bit of the background, because not everybody will know. Obviously, we've heard of this bloke Comey. Go on.
Right. Yes. Well, basically, from the beginning, where do I start? I mean,
oh, blimey, good point. Okay, so he was investigating. He basically interrupted Hillary's campaign, didn't he?
Yes. So I mean, I'll just start with that. Basically, Comey, he's been head of the FBI for 3 years. He was appointed by Obama, but FBI directors get a 10-year term so that they serve under multiple presidents, so that they're not beholden to one president.
Right.
They're supposed to be apart from the president's influence.
Yes.
And, but Comey, the whole stupid email, I mean, like, don't even get me started. But her emails, like, shut up. Anyway, Comey. I mean, it's way better to have nuclear war than to let Hillary Clinton send a freaking email from her house, right? Definitely. Anyway, Comey made this announcement a couple weeks before the election saying that he was reopening the investigation into Hillary Clinton's email because, I mean, long story, basically everyone was like, why are you making an announcement about this? And in hindsight, knowing that he was investigating Trump for his campaign's ties to Russia since July, it's like, why didn't you have a press conference saying, oh, hi, I'm investigating if Trump is colluding with Russia? Like, do you think that might have been interesting information for the American public? Maybe. So people are still like, what the fuck? Excuse me. What?
Sorry. Hey, whoa. Be good.
All right.
Passion. FCC, passion. Sorry, carry on.
People are still wondering what happened and why he gave that press conference. However, so there is on tape every Democrat of record going, Comey should resign, Comey should have his head chopped off. So they have that. But he also was investigating Trump and his ties to Russia. So once Trump was elected, apparently, according to this really excellent reporting from Washington Post, he called Comey in and basically had like a loyalty pledge dinner where he asked Comey to pledge his loyalty to Trump and drop the investigation, which is a crime. That is obstruction of justice. That is what the exact charge that Bill Clinton was impeached for. That's the exact charge that Richard Nixon was in. The impeachment charges were brought. He resigned before he got impeached. So
no, Nixon. I was looking into this, and I understand that the charges against Nixon were considerably firmer, and there were more. Also, this is all very alleged at the moment via an anonymous source that 3 of the people in that room at that meeting have denied. I mean, he might have been joking, but even Putin reckons he'll release it. I think he was joking. I think he was basically having a dig. But he said he'd release the transcript of that meeting as well.
You're talking about a different meeting. What I'm talking about is that he met with the FBI director, Comey. He met him one-on-one, and he invited him to dinner at the White House and asked him, as president, asked the FBI director to drop the investigation into Michael Flynn, who was his nephew. So that is...
But that is one word against another, isn't it? Or is it?
It is. However, Comey, being the director of the FBI, immediately leaving the room, sat down and wrote down an extemporaneous, like, word-by-word transcript of the conversation, which is admissible in court.
Yeah, but even whether or not that was... I'm not saying... I don't know. I don't know. I'm playing devil's advocate. Carry on.
But he also, I mean, I think this is one case where Trump hasn't actually admitted it, but he has said, if I did, it would have been appropriate. So he seemed to have admitted that he is willing to obstruct justice. I don't think that the case is shut and, shut.
That is far more serious a charge, actually, is it not, than this whole thing, whether or not he discussed some security details with the Russians, in as much as you kind of, when you elect a leader, you expect them to take some responsibility and to decide on the hoof whether or not they should discuss certain things. You kind of have to, you have to trust leaders that you elect to conduct politics. I'm not saying that they should give away all the state secrets. I'm not saying that. But on the other hand, if it's true that those secrets were relating to, I think it was about whether or not they should have laptops on flights and things like that, wasn't it? Well, maybe. I mean, was that somehow treasonous? On the other hand, if he was trying to obstruct justice by telling Comey, you please drop Flynn, then obviously that's wrong. That's out of order.
But that's not. But there is a big difference. Both things can be wrong, but one of them is not legal. It's a crime. You cannot obstruct justice. Probably he has the right to say Russians whatever he wants, but he has not the right to obstruct justice. Yeah. So there is a big difference between these two situations.
Yeah, that's very, very well spotted, because the law actually states that the president does have the right to declassify material. So even if he did, as reported, make a huge mistake, it was his legal right to do so. He can't.
So why did the press, so far as that's concerned, because Trump was this week on the stump saying, never before has a president been so persecuted by the press, basically, I think, paraphrasing what he said. Given that, I mean, he's got a lot. Is that not true? He has been lambasted from all sides, including his own party, because it's very questionable whether or not he's a genuine Republican man. It's very, very questionable. A lot of people reckon that he broke both parties when he became president, and I kind of think that to an extent as well. And it's almost as though he's got this fight going on with the entire swamp. And I don't know, maybe not. But I mean, his mandate was basically drain the swamp, wasn't it? And there was borders and things like that as well. But the main thing I think that the Americans voted for, I'd like to think anyway, was that they wanted to root out the corruption and and one of the first things he did, I think in his first week, was to write an executive order to say, now you can't be a lobbyist for however many years or your lifetime in certain cases. Basically, he's largely kicked the lobbyist issue into touch. He has started to try to drain the swamp, but he has been lambasted. Is it not fair to say that if it was legal, what he did, possibly declassifying secrets on the hoof, if that was not illegal, then why did the press even blow it up?
Because it is what he lambasted Hillary Clinton for a year, and said we cannot trust someone who can't handle confidential information or classified information. That was the
but maybe he sorry, carry on.
And there is another point, Olly. I think that press has the same right as Trump has the right to declassify whatever he declassifies. We as a press, we have to inform voters of the things. That's they have to decide if this is right or wrong, if he has the right or not, if they want this man doing this as a president or not. But we as a press, we have to inform of these things. So it's not, you decide that it means that press is blasting him or whatever, but the only thing that press has to do is to inform. So
yes, but do they? How often do they inform, and how often are they a kind of a PR service for Hillary Clinton?
I think that you're missing another angle here, Olly, which is that people are very concerned, including Republicans. I mean, Republicans have made their money on like Russia is the evil empire. I mean, Reagan, come on, Reagan's their hero. What did Reagan do? Reagan beat Russia, beat communism, blah, blah, blah. Trump
communism was failing too. Right. And it has to be said, Ronnie Reagan and Mikhail Gorbachev, they did a good job between them, didn't they?
I'm not agreeing with that narrative. I'm just saying that is the Republican narrative. So Trump is exactly what you said. He's not really a Republican, and his love of Russia is a very weird thing to Republicans. And people are not that comfortable with it. And the fact that he set up this meeting as a favor to Vladimir Putin, which he admitted on TV, and that American press was not invited to it, which people were really upset about, and that the New York Times had to run a picture credited to the Russian news agency from inside the White House was embarrassing.
Yeah.
And the idea kind of was like, what are you doing? Like, you're meeting with the Russians, you're not letting the press in. And he was like, oh, it was just, we were like, just, smiling. And he kind of was like, it was just a silly, like, hi, how are you meeting as a favor to my buddy Vlad. And then it's like, oh, and P.S. in that meeting, I may have just like, totally spilled some secrets that might, drastically affect our closest ally in the Middle East and may compromise their mission. And I mean, if you put all of that together, it gives this general sense and that, we're being played by the Russians, which is not, we're America. We're supposed to win at everything. Trump's brand is winning. We win. We're strong. We control the Russians. We tell them what to do. We're not.
But on the other hand, I watched all those debates, near as damn it. I did. I watched all of them, with the Trump-Clinton debates and whatnot. And one of them was the one when they were talking about the no-fly zone. And Hillary said, I would impose a no-fly zone over Syria. Now that is basically pulling the bear's tail. That's pulling Russia by the tail, and it may bite, and it might start a world war. It struck me that was a massively dangerous thing to even contemplate. And Trump spoke back. His riposte to that was, I will try to build relations with Russia because we've got too much war. We've got too much. We're spending way too much on war. What is it? $6 trillion over the last, since Iraq. And we've got to pull back. We've got to think. We've got to put America first. And one of those things to look to that, if you like, it's a kind of a Ron Paul type of line as well, is to try and create more peace and have less adversity.
Right.
No?
But I mean, I think you're being very kind to Trump, which fine. But
Maybe.
I mean, also in one of the debates, Hillary said you're going to be his puppet, which, and if he truly was doing it for the cause of peace, I would have some time for it. But there's been a lot of very good reporting by the New Yorker, by like very, financial. I think Wall Street Journal had some excellent reporting on this that really ties Trump's organization to Russian money. And
that's right.
So
I don't know if I may say that we are here, not only press, but citizens, to control the government. And Hillary Clinton is not there anymore. So what she did during the campaign, American people vote and they decide Trump to be their president. And now press and citizens and all the society has to control Trump.
Yes.
Not Clinton.
But the Democratic Party has a void, doesn't it? Sorry, Javier. There's a void. There's a vacuum there now, isn't there? What do you think about that?
Well, yeah, there is a vacuum. Yeah, not only in the States, and there is a vacuum in the left or center left in all the world, I think.
Yes. Yeah.
And yeah, right. That's true. But this is another point, and I don't know how the world can handle this, and if it makes sense to separate right and left and all these things or not. Well, these are other things.
Yeah. No, I agree.
And there is a vacuum, yeah.
I'm not trying to, elect Hillary Clinton today in the middle of May, but I do think that there were some important issues that she raised. And I think those issues remain as kind of the key issues for the opposition. And, she did get 3 million more votes than him. So there is a larger part of this country that wants that agenda. So, people say Democrats have no agenda. They wouldn't do terribly going by a lot of what she was talking about. It did get 3 million more votes. It's just we have this electoral college system that gives the middle of the country much more weight in their voting. Trump really only won by about 80,000 votes centered in Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, and Michigan, which is kind of insane. And I think it's dawning on a lot of the country that those votes were probably influenced by, fake news, not to use a favorite Trump impression, but
very, very fake.
Very, very fake.
You're so fake.
Like, who is the best in the world at propaganda? Who has multiple decades of experience at propaganda? I mean,
all of them.
It's basically like a bloodless coup, and I think.
Well, hold on. Because it feels like there's a bit of a coup being enacted on Trump at the moment. It kind of looks a bit like that to me. I'm not saying that he doesn't deserve it. I'm not saying that, but I'm just saying that it kind of feels a bit like that.
Here's the thing, and I didn't want to interrupt you while you were talking, but his whole promise of draining the swamp, he did not do that. I mean, he railed against Hillary Clinton for being in the pocket of Goldman Sachs, but he's got 12 former employees of Goldman Sachs working for him, including his Treasury Secretary, who's the former head of Goldman Sachs. He didn't drain the swamp at all, so that's frustrating.
On the other, go on, Javier. Sorry, go on. You were going to say
no. I wouldn't. I didn't say anything.
So I mean, and I do also think that the press and the swamp has every right to fight back. If you're being attacked daily, members of the media and members of the swamp, I will jokingly call them, but it's like, I'm the daughter of a diplomat. My father worked for the U.S. government for 30 years. I saw him and his colleagues working hard and very committed to, their jobs and their country. And to just impugn anyone who works for the government as like horrible swamp people I found very distasteful. It's not the most high paying job in the world. A lot of people do it because they really want to be of service to their country. So I found that I did not like that about Trump. I don't think everyone who works for the government is amazing, but to blanketly disqualify anyone who works for the government as part of the swamp, I didn't find helpful. And, a lot of people have their entire career is tied up in Washington and it working the way it worked before Trump came in. So you don't think they're going to fight back? Of course they are. And for Trump to call the media liars every day, you don't think they're going to be like, okay, fine, it's war and you're going down. And I think you're seeing the swamp and the media fight back.
Can I just suggest a scenario, which is that just by some, chance, Trump actually wants to drain the swamp. Is it not possible that the swamp is so deep? I mean, if you went into Congress and if they were motor racing drivers, they would have to put stickers all over their suits with who they're sponsored by, and we'd see just where their loyalties could lie, or possibly do lie. Certainly the people that pay for their campaigns and all the rest of it. Is it not a possibility that he could be genuine, but he's in a situation? So, for example, he had to pull in this guy, his Treasury Secretary, Wall Street guy, did exactly the same as Obama, has to be said. But both of them said that they would drain the swamp in their different ways. Obama, the way he said it, was no Wall Street in the White House. He also said no lobbyists in the White House. Hold on just a sec. Javier?
Yeah, sorry, yeah.
Darling, when you type, can you type quietly? Because your keyboard is noisy. Yeah? Okay,
sorry.
Thank you. Now, is there not a possibility that Trump actually, he is, oh, blimey, maybe this is a long shot, but he is genuine. He does want to drain the swamp, but the swamp permeates on all sides. And he is just, oh, blimey. I mean, he's found himself in a place. It's so hard to do it. And so he's thinking, well, maybe I can appease both sides just to try and keep the Republicans behind me at least. So I've at least got my side of the aisle on my side so that I'm not impeached on a technicality, as was Bill Clinton. And that was, I mean, okay, he did lie and he shouldn't have lied. But the fact that he was, basically, it was a silly impeachment, wasn't it? He didn't want that, certainly not in his first term. And so maybe he was going slowly. Maybe he thought, I'll let the swamp come in a bit, better to have the enemy on the inside, peeing out sort of thing. And then I'll attack this over a period of time. Is that not and also, I mean, look at what happened to JFK. And I have often wondered if the reason, because I was so pleased when Obama got in, I thought it was a great thing for America. Yeah, sure, because he was black, but also, and mainly because, not because of color, but because he said he was going to have no Wall Street in the White House. Well, that was really, when you look at it, a lie. However, he may have had no choice because, he's got two beautiful daughters. I mean, is it not a possibility that Trump has found himself now in a position where it's just very, very hard to control? And what we're seeing, as you've kind of said a little bit, but maybe for different motivations, maybe Trump has different motivations, that he has, oh, blimey, I lost my thread. I mean, could it not be that Trump, is it just between a rock and a hard place, and he's trying to work out how to go, and he's being attacked from all sides?
There's a huge leap that you need me to take there, which I can't take, which is that Trump is not a cynical person who is in it for his own gain.
Do you have any evidence?
There's nothing that he's shown us. Nothing. And he's kind of an open book, I think he said exactly what he thought the crowd wants him to hear. He's a narcissist. He loves applause. He likes to be liked.
Yeah.
And it was a good applause line. Just like, we're going to build a wall and Mexico's going to pay for it. There's no wall and Mexico is like, no, we're not going to pay for it. A lot of what he said was really meaningless. It's like sweet that you kind of take him at face value, but I don't even know that he takes himself at face value. He actually said the words, I stand by nothing. I mean, there was a journalist pushing him on like, do you stand by saying that Obama wiretapped you? And he's like, I stand by nothing. And I think that should be his motto. I stand by nothing. And I mean, I do think that if anyone really attempted to drain the swamp, the swamp will fight back. I mean, that's a lot of money. That's a lot of entrenched interests. But
Jill, hold that thought. Hold that thought. We got a break coming up, bit of a bumper. You're tuned into Jingly Jangly here on the Revolution Radio, and we'll be back in a couple of minutes' time. Got Jill Stempel and Javier Molto here with me, Olly Connelly. Yes, hello. We're back. Yes. Oh, they just all went. Okay, lovely. Yeah, we got. You're listening to Jingly Jangly, Revolution Radio. We got Jill Stempel here tonight from New York, and Javier Molto, a couple of political junkies, and with me, Olly Connelly. And I just wanted to say, as a bit of an aside, if you do like what we do here on this network, then please do us a favor and send us some cash. Because we don't do this for any money. We do this because we want a strong opposition and we want a decent government. And yeah, blimey, I don't know. And of course, we talk about all sorts of esoteric stuff and all the rest of it. So it's rather beautiful, a lot of it, as well as the activism side. And so, yeah, if you do like it, you can go along to our website, which you must be on if you're listening to this show, and press that donate button and send us all your cash. And if you can't afford it, don't worry about it. Just enjoy it. And hey, yes, Jill, I wanted to ask you, please, I'll tell you what, I'm just going to set a bit of an agenda here. We've got Jill for the next 25 minutes, and I want to concentrate on Europe a bit more in this hour. And I want to ask about how we can get some kind of a consensus as well. So, you know, between us, it seems to me that we're not going to have any effective opposition really unless we have a bit more consensus between us and a little bit more leaning across the aisle, trying to understand things from the other side, it seems to me. So I want to talk a bit about that as well. But first of all, let's just because this business going on, all this shouting media, or maybe they're correct. I mean, they were in the case of Nixon, weren't they? And well, I'm sure a lot of people were saying the same sort of things that I've been saying tonight in the early part of the Deep Throat allegations back at WAPO, the Washington Post. Again, but so Jill, I wanted to ask you before we finish with the Trump stuff and the Clinton stuff about Rich Seth, because that's come up this week again. This guy was a DNC staffer who is alleged to have released a load of emails to WikiLeaks, and following that allegation that happened, he was murdered. And he was shot in the back of the head, as I understand it. It was the police put it down to a robbery, a burglar, but it was a botched one because they didn't take anything. They didn't take his watch. They didn't take his money. And so, as burglaries go, it's a pretty ridiculous burglary. I tell you, they could have done better. But no, this guy, he lost his life, and the allegation is that the DNC were trying to silence this guy. And then we know what happened off the back of that. There was all sorts of turmoil in the DNC party. The chairman had to quit and all that. But that wasn't because of this, having said that. These are very, very strong allegations, Jill, that somehow the Clinton campaign is an accessory to murder.
I mean, you know, people love to make Hillary Clinton into Lady Macbeth, and I just don't see it.
Well, they do the same with Trump.
True, I guess. It's just, I mean, has Trump been accused of murder? I mean, Hillary Clinton's been accused of murder multiple times. I mean, she
has. Yeah.
She was accused of murdering Vince Foster, even though it was like clearly a suicide. I love it when he says no politician has ever been treated as badly. What about Hillary Clinton? What about Barack Obama? What about all of the fake, accusations leveled at them? But, we'll focus on your question. I mean, I just, with your linking to the stories, I've just really read about it in the last couple of days. But I mean, it does strike me that his own family is very upset that he's being used by, partisan media to make a point. I don't know what, the details around his murder, but I don't trust Julian Assange about anything. Do you? I mean, I don't know that I believe what he's saying, that this guy was a source.
Honestly, I don't know what to believe anymore. That's the God's honest truth. And people call me I was accused earlier, commenting on something or other, of being a cynic. I'm not a cynic. I'm a skeptic. I'll tell you what is cynical. Career politics. That's cynical. But I just don't know who to trust. And that's half the problem we have. How can we form? So this is now, okay, let's move on a bit. This is half the problem, is it not? Before we can have an effective opposition, we somehow need to pull together. But are we not now in the realms of classic divide and conquer?
Yeah, we are. I mean, there's a new book out on tyranny, and I just was watching an interview with the guy who's a political scientist. He's not with any party, but a classic way to stir up distrust in government is to stir up distrust in media. So I get very frustrated when I hear, people like, oh, all of the media is lies. It's like, no. And if we do believe that, then we are in trouble, I do think. But in the same way, people are only reading the media that they want to read. And I think you're smart to kind of try and get that surround sound sort of, read the left and the right and see what's in the middle. But, the thing about Julian Assange is he's much like Trump, a classic self-promoter. And in the reporting I'm reading, he's never confirmed that he was a source, and he seems to only be trying to tie himself to this guy, maybe as a way to stir up controversy. Do you know what I mean?
Well, I mean, that is a suspicion. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I have to say, I do have a lot of time for what WikiLeaks has done in terms of releasing some of the stuff. I know that you're not going to take kindly to this, but I thought that the Podesta emails were absolutely fascinating, and some of the allegations were quite frightening. And I'll just bring up one example, which I've harked on about in the past, Jill, which is the according to Podesta, Hillary was getting money from Saudi Arabia, not personally, but the Clinton Foundation. And that kind of puts the potential president of the United States, because this was during her campaign that this came out, in the realms, again, of that treason word.
Yeah, I mean, but
I'm just saying, I don't know, but Podesta didn't deny any of that.
Right.
In fact, he mocked it. He mocked it on a video. And said, hope you're doing well, Julian, kind of while he was drinking a glass of Chablis or something.
Right. Well, first of all, I mean, certainly the Podesta emails were fascinating, but I think that it's unfair in any game when one side has an advantage. If we were able to read the behind-the-scene Trump campaign emails, oh my God, how fascinating would that be? I mean, it's unfair when you get to see behind the curtain of one side, but not the other. It creates an imbalance. And I didn't read the email about Saudi Arabia, it's hard to comment on something. But I mean, Saudi Arabia is our ally. Trump is going there in a couple days, and he's going to get a royal welcome. So
yeah, he is. I'll tell you, I hate the fact that Saudi Arabia is our ally. I hate it so much. You talked about women's rights earlier. Anyway, carry on.
I was going to say, you think I love it, but I don't think that would not be. I mean, taking money from Saudi Arabia is not treason. We do it all the time as a country.
It does kind of conflict you.
It does. I mean, then you have to get into is the Clinton Foundation, does money given to a charity like affect the policy of a politician who is, it was the Bill Clinton Foundation. I guess it's their family foundation. But, I think it goes to a question of judgment. Do you trust her that she would not, have that affect her policies? And I think that the Trump campaign, to their credit, with the aid of Fox News and a lot of media on their side, created mistrust in her judgment. And that was, I think Javier made a good point. It's like the American people did vote and we need to move on. But
let me just say also, for balance, there are allegations that have come out in the last few days that Trump has taken money via third parties. And I think really Jared Kushner is the alleged person from the Russians. And I don't know the truth of that. It's something I saw on the Young Turks. The Young Turks are pretty good, it seems to me. They're pretty good at saying they were wrong when they were wrong, at correcting themselves as well. And then again, I don't know who their sponsors are. Yeah, I'm skeptical. But, yes.
Olly, being skeptical is very difficult. I mean, knowing the truth is very difficult, but not only in politics, in everything that we have to tackle every day. And being a human being, living in society is very difficult. We have to vote, but we have to know if religion is true or not. We have to know if any kind of science are true or not, any kind of medical diagnosis is truth or not.
Yes.
So everything is very difficult, and we cannot trust all the things we read. We cannot follow our votes because what people say or what people write.
But this is supposed to be what government's for, to regulate things so that we know whether or not, for example, a vaccine is safe or...
Yeah, I agree. It should be government. But for instance, in Spain, when we have the terrorist attack in Madrid, government said that it was ETA. It was the terrorist organization, and it was government.
The Basque separatist group.
Yeah.
The equivalent of the IRA. Go on.
And they have the interests. Of course they have them. And if we are skeptics, and if we try to be wise, we have to be very careful. So we cannot listen to everything. But not only in politics, in everything. So having an opinion is a very difficult thing. Yeah. And having any kind of decision about who is better to vote is a very difficult thing. Everything is very difficult under my point of view. And so if you say, well, he said that, we should have real tools and tools that we could believe
checks and balances.
And well, that's the reason we have a very complicated justice system, because knowing the truth, going to the end of the reality is a very difficult. So we vote, all of us, we vote without knowing anything. And that's the real difficult
It's incredible,
difficulty
isn't it?
of
We vote for these people and we don't really know what we're voting for.
yeah, but
No, I mean, I see what you're saying, but I do think in the case here, we did know there was a very, very stark difference in the election in America. And, for certain communities, like immigrant communities, that there were huge consequences and they knew exactly what was going to happen. And they just released statistics today. Immigration arresting undocumented immigrants has gone up 38% in the same time period since Trump was elected. So there were very big and real consequences in the choices between Trump.
Yeah, but hold on. All he's doing there is protecting America's borders. I mean, isn't that the first duty of government?
Well,
to protect the people.
It depends on if you think you need protection from an immigrant who hasn't committed a crime and has children.
Well, yeah. But if they're between them cumulatively, if they're lowering wages for folks that are there legitimately, then there's an argument to say that the population that is legitimate is being ripped off.
Do you have, data to back that up? Because the data that I've seen shows that immigrants actually help the economy. And I think that narrative that they take jobs away from Americans is false, because a lot of the jobs that they're working, Americans refuse to work. There's farms there's crops that are not being picked because they can't find anyone to get them, to pick them, to take the job.
But is it not fair to say, though, that people that are in a country should be officially recognized, and then the people, the electorate, can decide who they do and do not want to come in through the rule of law, as opposed to people coming over the border illegally and then just being, oh, it's all right, it's fine. I'm not. Well, I don't know. I mean, it's just, haven't you got to have some kind of framework rather than it just be, a bit more chaotic?
Well, I don't know. Are they going to kick you out of Spain once British?
Oh, they might do. They might do. Yeah.
This could be a very real situation for you, Ollie.
Depends on Javier.
I mean, I think that Obama made a decision not to arrest undocumented immigrants who have children who are American citizens if they had paid their taxes, which you can do without being a citizen, and if they had not committed a crime. And I think that, a lot of people are very uncomfortable with the idea of federal agents going into public schools and pulling children out or arresting parents in front of them on school drop-offs, which there have been documented cases of. That creeps people out. It suggests fascism. It suggests, that is
Jill,
not America to us.
Jill, I completely agree with you, and I understand you, but it's hardly to understand, or it's difficult to agree with is that Trump hid his truth, but he didn't. Because he didn't.
Right.
He said everything very clear during campaign.
Right.
And people voted him. So he won without hiding anything. So that's the main problem. So he has all the legitimacy to do what he's doing, because he said that he was going to do right what he's doing. That's the main problem.
That was my comment in response to you, of saying, when you said that a lot of times you felt that when you were voting, you didn't have all the information. I think that in the case of our last election, we had too much information, and there were very real choices. And unfortunately, I think that a lot of people ignored information. I think that in this country and parsing the political stats and, the exit polling and what people saying, it's a lot of people have the information and vote against their own best interests or vote anyway. You know, I mean, a lot of Republicans are one issue voters around the issue of abortion, and they didn't really like anything else that Trump had to say, but they were like, for them, that is their only issue, which, you know, is crazy to me, but that's me. So
I think there's a good example in the UK at the moment. People in this general election are largely voting purely about, you know, the UK referendum. This really is a second referendum. And a lot of people are voting on based on whether or not they want to stay in the EU. So that's another example. But sorry, carry on.
No, so I'm interested in what you're saying. So you think that the UK election is essentially a second referendum, and like Tory is Brexit and Liberals are staying in the EU?
Basically, yeah. Basically. Yeah. I mean that's not exclusive. That's not across the, you know, obviously there's a lot of people involved voting, but yeah, I think that that is a massive part of it. And another sort of single issue. But this is dangerous because people are voting on one issue, as you've said, and then there are all sorts of things that can be slid in round the back. And already a lot of the stuff that the Tories are talking about is, you know, it's going to affect a lot of people, and and the opposition is in such a state. And but anyway, we'll Jill, I know you haven't got long. I know you haven't got long, and you're going to have to go. How can we find consensus between, well, just as many of us as we possibly can, just so that at least we're pulling together more? Because I spend a lot of time looking at not so much the news story, but the comments underneath the story. And the comments are so depressing to read. There's so much, oh, it's the Jews, or, oh, it's the Nazis in Germany again, or, oh, it's horrid. And it's just rubbish. It's just nothing. but people are being divided, and a lot of people are going down to their basic human instincts as opposed to thinking a little bit more, you know, out of their own personal box. How can we pull together a bit rather than being divided, ruled?
Yeah, I think that's really like the question of the day. If I had an answer, I would definitely be shouting it far and wide on every radio show. But I mean, I will say that I think we've had to find Republicans to work with in this environment because we are shut out of all three branches of government. And it's been interesting to me to see which Republicans have sort of stood up with the courage of their convictions and kind of opposed Trump by just sticking to what they've believed in instead of going along the party line. So, I mean, I think that for me, it's been like trying to find the humanity and the common purposes. I mean, I do have relatives who were Trump supporters, and it's been really difficult to kind of talk to them and try and find common ground with them. But I don't know. I don't have the magic. I don't know if I have the magic answer for you. If you figure it out, can you tell me?
I'll try. I'll tell you. It seems to be my life's mission.
I do think it's been interesting, and I do need to go because I hear the kitties. But it's been interesting. Oh,
you mum.
I know. I gotta go be a mommy. Sorry, but
that's all right. It's a very important job.
I know they're our future.
Yep, they are.
I think that it's a lot easier to be against something than to be for it. And I do think that it's going to be, like opposition-wise, the opposition to Trump is building hugely. And I think we will see a huge wave in the 2018 election. The question is then, what do you do when you win? You know, it's easy to be against then once you're for, you start arguing about, okay, what are we really for? I mean, it's human nature to disagree, right? So,
okay, I've got one last question for you.
yeah.
Just a quick question. The Democratic Party, is it going to fill the vacuum by the next election? Is it going to be healthy to go into the next election?
I hope so. I mean, I think that a lot of money is flowing in. I think we're going to get a lot of new blood, a lot of candidates. And I give credit to, I was Hillary all the way. I never really was a Bernie supporter, but I really admire what he's doing as far as grassroots fundraising and really grassroots candidate finding. His organization is really working with candidates to get on the ballot, and Howard Dean's also really active in that. And actually Hillary Clinton just basically formed a new political action committee, mostly to raise money to funnel to new candidates. Because, we may not know Joan Smith or Joe Smith who wants to run for this random House seat, but we know Hillary Clinton, and if she's like, hey, it's worth giving this person money, she can funnel money to them. So, but I agree with you. I think that if there was a new party in America, it would get a lot of attention. It just takes, I don't know that anyone has the sort of courage and money to do that. But I think a lot of the reason Macron won in France was because he formed a new party. Even though he worked for Hollande, he made himself seem new. So it's like, we need to make ourselves seem new,
Jill Stempel, you are my democratic conscience. And I'm so chuffed that you've come on the show at last. And I hope that you'll do this again. Have you enjoyed it?
I have had a blast. And thank you, Javier. And I'm sorry if I was talking too much.
No. It's okay for me. I was happy to listen to you. And I would like to quote some of the things you said just now. You said that it is human nature to disagree. And I think it's that's the worst thing that we had to assume, but because I think it's true, but we have to be a civilization, and civilization, the only way to be a civilization is to agree and to find the best thing for all of us.
Exactly.
And as we are not that clever, and probably it is in our nature to disagree, even if we know that there are ways that all of us we live a little bit better. If we find a common solution, we try to disagree to leave some of us in the best position, even if we have to know that we are going to be fighting all our lives. And that's horrible to listen and to acknowledge. But yeah, and this is, I think this is the root of all our problems, that it is in our human nature to disagree.
It is, but we need to still listen to people we disagree with. I do need to run, but it's been a really great chat, and I'll let you guys take it away with Europe, and hopefully.
Yeah, we're going to talk about you behind your back now. God bless you.
Yeah.
Good.
God bless you, Jill.
All right, well, and sending Trump over to you next week, so have fun with that.
Thank you very much.
With you. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.
Bye. Take care.
That was Jill. That was Jill Stempel. And well, yeah, she's a good girl. She's a good girl. I don't really share her opinions on many things, but the things that really matter, completely. And it's the same with you, Javier. Oh man, I tell you what. Okay, so we talked a lot about the stateside deal. Can you tell me about Spain? Because it's a fascinating example when it comes to opposition. We here had no government for about a year, until about a year ago. There was a time there was no government because come the last election, nobody could form a coalition. And the only Javier, tell me, there's this thing called Podemos, which means we're able. It's a bit like we are change that Obama said, and that's the kind of a left-wing political party that came out of nowhere just a few years ago to basically be a kind of an anti-corruption. You tell me if I'm wrong here. An anti-corruption equivalent to the PSOE, which is kind of like the Democrats in Spain, which Spain had a duopolistic political system, two-party system, whereby, same as the States, same as the UK kind of was 10 years ago with Labour and the Conservatives, if you like. And on the other side of the fence, with the right-wing side, or centre-right, that's PP, the Party Popular, which is the equivalent of, if you like, the GOP, the Republicans or the Conservatives in the UK, say. And they had an anti-corruption equivalent come up out of nowhere again, Ciudadanos, which means citizens. And that party took a huge chunk out of the PP vote at that last election, as did Podemos out of the PSOE, and a bit of each and all that. And that what happened was we ended up having no government at all here in Spain. Javier, is that right?
Yeah, it's completely right. It's a good description of what happened here in Spain. And now we have a government, but
that government was put together out of desperation, wasn't it? And that nobody has a mandate, really. And yet, but the left, in desperation to have a government in Spain, the left said, yeah, we'll let PP, they did have the biggest vote share. So the old, if you like, conservative stroke Republican Party, we'll let them take the reins, but they don't have a mandate, really, do they? They do kind of have a mandate. They've got a legal mandate, but they don't have a moral mandate to do a great deal, do they, Javier?
Well, I don't know if they have or not have a mandate, but what they don't have is the votes. Right? They don't have the majority to.
It's all split.
Yeah, to do anything, but well, it's a difficult situation because.
What do you think of the state of the opposition in Spain in terms of holding the government to account?
Well, it's very difficult to say, but the problem is that all the parties, it's normal. They say it's normal in democracy to have the goal to be on the government, but I don't think that this is that important. What they should think, and they don't need to be in the government to that, is to run the country. Even in the opposition, you have to run the country, and even if you are not in the government. So,
what, by holding it to account, you mean?
Of course, in any ways, and to agree different things, even if you are not completely. If you don't completely agree with that, you have to agree things, because there is a vote and there are different peoples with different ideologies in every country, and you have to know if you are in the majority or in the minority. And well, it's a very difficult situation that you have to deal with. But I think that their tasks are to be able to manage all these things, but they don't. They what they want is to be in the government and to fight for the next elections, and that's not the way. But it's been like this all history. So how can we manage to change that? Is what we don't know. I think, or at least I don't know. I don't know how to control them, how to how to make people vote, thinking in the long future, not in the next year, and how to all the people we vote. And
I think Spain. Sorry, carry on.
No. And we want our party to win, and that's not the way we should vote. We should vote thinking in all the people who live in in the country, even when you vote, even if you agree more than one party or another, it should be another kind of vote. It should be, well, it's difficult, and we have some tools now that we could manage with internet to.
You think
to vote better, but it's very difficult.
Yes. So some of these internet ideas. I remember there was one called Internetocracy, which was basically. Did you know a bit about that? It was basically a way to bring politics a bit more online, to get. Again, it was trying to find some consensus, I think, but it was also. Okay, Spain is a very good example of a pretty typical European country at the moment in terms of its politics. I mentioned at the top of the show what's going on in Austria and in the Netherlands. Very similar, really, you could argue, in terms of the division. I mean, there is no extreme anything in Spain. There's no extreme party with any prowess. But nonetheless, in terms of the politics being broken, it's in that soup, along with so many European countries and indeed the United States we've been talking about. Spain is broken, though. I mean, this is the truth. I mean, it's the same with Greece, Portugal, arguably France, possibly even Germany, although Germany less so, for all sorts of interesting reasons. Basically, they're still running on a guilt complex, in my opinion. But you know, maybe they're right. There's Spain is this. It just came out a couple of days ago.
Hello, Olly.
Hey.
Yay.
Can you not?
Hello.
Can you hear me?
Yeah. Again now.
What are you doing?
Excuse me.
Don't touch that button. Go on.
No, I didn't touch anything.
Okay.
Nothing wrong happened. But let me introduce something. You said Spain is broken, but you cannot imagine even in the amount.
Politically.
But not only politically. If you look inside every political party, they are also broken. If the Socialist Party you mentioned before, it's broken. And even Podemos, they are broken inside. And
that's the new left. Why are they broken?
Because it is Iglesias and the other guy with the glasses. I cannot remember his name. Help me. My memory is horrible.
I can't remember.
They vote Errejón and Iglesias. They are two leaders of the Podemos, and they had an internal election 2 months ago. And in the Popular Party, they have a very big division against and in favor of Rajoy. So
you're talking about infighting.
Yeah, inside every party. And then in the country, we have Catalans, separatists. They want to split or to separate themselves from Spain. So and
the
even
success.
And the vast country. So we are broken in many ways. And
do
even
we need? Sorry, go on.
Even the society, the wealthiness and the poorness are every day more extreme. So we are broken in many ways.
Is there an argument to say that the Catalans actually, maybe like a lot of Scots, not necessarily the majority, I would argue, by the way, in Scotland, and not necessarily the majority in Catalonia either. Is there not an argument to say that those folks talking about being independent, being their own sovereign state or nation, is a good thing, because at least they can bring politics local where it is more easily held accountable? Is there not an argument to say that makes sense, as opposed to at the moment with the EU, they want more and more integration, and actually the EU, there's a lot of evidence to say that it is a one bus stop along the road to a global government. That's what Delors talked about. That's what Jean-Claude Trichet, the first president of the European Central Bank, said as well. Is that kind of globalist mission? Has that been proven? The people don't want it. In fact, they want something very different. And maybe they're running to an extreme. But on the other hand, maybe we do need to think a bit smaller, and maybe we do need, without sounding like, if you like, a little Englander. If you kind of, there's an expression in English, charity begins at home, and it sounds selfish. But on the other hand, if you don't look after yourself, you ain't no good to anybody else. And so if these territories do have their own independence, yeah, sure, there are some complications over trade to be sorted out and borders and things like that. But on the other hand, at least the people are far more likely to get what they vote for. No?
I have to say I have no clear opinion about that. I don't know if it's easier to control the government if it's smaller country. You probably you can manage it in other ways, doing local governments and a bigger one. But control governments is a very difficult task, even in a cities, in Madrid, in Barcelona. So, because once you are 2 million people, how do you manage to make your voice hearable,
heard on the world stage or on a larger stage?
Yeah, and how do you manage to get in common things and proposals and go ahead and control? And that's very difficult in
That's one of the big arguments against Brexit, has to be said, that people have been talking about.
Yeah. So I have no opinion. I think that all the territories should have the legitimacy to declare them independent. But the problem is how they manage this legitimacy and how they what's the volume of the population or the percentage of the population to give this legitimacy. All these things are very, very difficult, even if it's only the territory who has the legitimacy to decide or not. In Scotland, in the United Kingdom, you decided that Scotland, they have the legitimacy to decide the future. In Spain, many people, they say that Catalans, they don't have the legitimacy to decide their future. Why not? Difficult to deal with and to discuss. I have no clear opinion about that, and I don't think if it's easier or not. I think that these things now are very popular because we live in a moment of many difficulties in any way, and we like to think that if we change things are going to be better. And so that's the reason we break countries, we break parties, we break many things, and but difficulties are always there because they do not depend only on government. They depend on how we manage energy, how we are able to work, to produce, to many things. So, solutions are difficult.
This is actually something that was brought up in that European Parliament debate, those MEPs that voted 525 to 25, saying that reform should be enacted in the EU. this vote that is not legally binding. They were saying exactly this, that maybe what we should do is we should, rather than going for more and more integration so that we do effectively become a United States of Europe, instead of that, we need to give back powers to the local sovereign states and just involve ourselves in overriding matters that are common interests for all nations. Maybe that is a sensible compromise.
Yeah, but it should be in the roots of the European, in the roots of every country, of the world. I mean, of the human beings, to try to find the way to run our society in the ways that are better for all of us, independently of the country you live, on the zone you were born on.
I agree. But you said earlier that people should vote not so much just for themselves, but they should be voting for the entire country as well. That's what you said, no?
Yeah. And I think that because I'm convinced that when things are going better for the people surrounding you, are going to be better for you as well.
I agree.
If we only think in the short term and in ourselves, we are forgetting that we will find problems in the future, because people are not going to be able to help their situation if the situation is not good, and they are going to ask for different things. So you cannot vote against other people, because these other people, they are going to fight one day. So if you are fighting against, if you are voting against, it's in the short term, but we should not vote against anything. We should vote in favor. But that's very difficult because we are a polarized society, and well, that's not easy to find a way. But votes should be wiser and voting for all of us at the same time. And there are no parties for that, because they are exploding. They are trying to get profit of this human nature to disagree that we were talking about before.
Yeah, divide rule.
Yeah, and Jill was right about this, and every political party try to take profit of that human condition, and that's horrible. I mean, we should be a civilization, but the way is very long.
Okay, I'll give you an example of where that seems to fall down, what you suggest. Because whoever you actually vote for in the UK, there is still a deal, an arms deal, guns, all that, with Saudi Arabia. Irrespective of who you vote for, there is still a deal with this horridly misogynist, gay killing. If a wife gets raped, then she gets caned or whipped or maybe even beheaded. I mean, whoever we vote for, we're voting for murderers.
Yeah.
What do we do?
Yeah. Well, first of all,
and then there's Yemen. By the way, sorry, carry on. And funding ISIS as well.
Yeah, but you cannot be guilty for being born in Saudi Arabia. And if I had been born there,
no, I'm not talking about Saudi Arabia.
No, yeah, but even the royal family. If they hadn't born there, they would be different. But they were born there, and they have their education, their tradition, and yeah, we have to change that. But
it's not something we agree with, is it? Wahhabism. It's not something we agree with. And
of
so
course
why do we
not.
put up with it?
Of
Why
course
do
not.
we put up with it?
Well, we have to fight, but we cannot fight as a foreigners. We have to fight trying to convince them that the thing they do are not good, not even for them.
Yeah, but they don't care what we say.
Of course not, but things go very slowly. If you, I mean, in the last 2,000 years, society has changed forward and backwards and in different ways, and changes are.
What has SETI? What?
I mean, in the evolution, in better conditions, in welfare, in more democracy, in less democracy, we've been stepping backwards and forwards, and in the society, in going to a better civilization. I mean, things are difficult, and people are not going to change because you fight against them. They will change if they are convinced that you are right. And if they change their own mind. So in Saudi Arabia, they are very different to us, and we completely disagree. But even in Spain or in England, there are many people in favor of gender this difference or whatever. Inequality, yeah. They're the people who defend that.
Yeah.
And what's the way to change that? Convince them that's not good. Or if we're not able to convince them, we will have to convince their children, or they will convince us that we are wrong. But how all the other ways to fight that are the wrong ways, because if people are not convinced, if you only use the force, the strength, or violence, to change that
gunship diplomacy.
Yeah, it's not a long-term solution. So yeah, we completely disagree with Saudi Arabia, but how can we change them? That's the point. How can we change us? So it's only education and trying to convince people of your ideas. There is no other way to do things. I think
this organic process is awfully
very slow, of course, but we are.
But are we not being manipulated though by? I mean, for example, let's look at this in terms of the EU as opposed to Spain or the UK. We have no opposition really in the EU Parliament. We don't, even our MEPs don't have any power, or barely any power, and they're the only ones that are elected. And so, is it not fair to say that the EU is anti-democratic? That we really have a problem with? Pardon?
Yeah, no. The EU is a fake.
Yeah,
it's a fake. It's a fake state. Yeah. It is not democratic. Of course not. Well, there is no. Nobody's going to.
Are you happy? Are you happy to put up with that?
I'm not, but the problem is I don't know how to change it.
Get rid of it.
How?
It needs to be happening anyway. Well, only through referendums. It's so tragic. You know what? I used to be so pro-EU because it seemed to me it was just a lovely idea, and we do share common values throughout Europe. We really do.
We do.
But the demographic in Europe is changing, and those values could well change as well. That's one thing. But the EU has become a bear moth. It's become this sort of massive thing that is out of control. And
yeah,
I don't know.
But even every country, look, Spain is out of control of the citizens. How can we try to? Well, United States is out of control of the citizens. I mean, all because we vote, but we are not able to control if the government is doing what we voted for, and we cannot do anything to get them to manage the country in the way that we thought they were going to do when they presented the candidates. Yeah, I cannot say that word, but
Candidacy.
Yeah. So
we are running out of time, Javier. We're running out of time. Look, I just want to ask you one last question. Do you think that we have achieved anything tonight?
Well, yeah, it's the only way to achieve things. Talk about things and try to find the best way to organize. But yeah, there is. Will
you come back on? Will you come back on and we can try and thrash this out a bit more?
Of course, I'm more than happy.
I know that you find English is not your native language. I know you find it a bit difficult, but I also know that you've got one of the most fascinating brains of anybody I've ever met. And well, apart from that, I love you, mate. And I'm so glad that you, Javier Molto, and Jill Stempel were my guests tonight on Jingly Jangly. This is Olly Connelly signing out with Revolution Radio. We got Mike Harris coming up. Hey.
Listening to Revolution Radio.